Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel today called How to Thrive as a Human and an Entrepreneur. I'm excited to host this session with UC San Diego Housing, Dining and Hospitality, Wellness and Engagement. So before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Christine Liu. I'll be your moderator for this panel. I'm the Assistant Director of Operations at The Basement, which is an entrepreneurial center for UC San Diego students. And something we really value at The Basement is this idea of finding balance and wellness as a person, as an entrepreneur, and as a student. So this afternoon, I am excited to introduce you all to our panelists who will be leading the discussion over a series of questions related to wellness, finding balance, and just getting insights from those who are aspiring entrepreneurs, hearing from actual entrepreneurs from themselves directly. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to our panelists. So Mona, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Welcome in. I'm Mona Powell. So as you saw on that first slide, I'm representing 3 different organizations. One is my primary, which is UC San Diego. I'm the Wellness and Engagement Manager for Housing, Dining, Hospitality. So I currently oversee all wellness programs and events amongst our undergraduate colleges and our grad and family housing areas, which includes staff and faculty housing. Normally, we house about 16,000 students. We are growing. I think in the next 5 years, we were expected to grow to 25,000. So good times and fast paced in that area. I also recently co-founded Generate Good, which is a virtual micro-volunteering platform. And our mission is to facilitate virtual giving. So there's a lot of ways to give money online, but there isn't a whole lot of ways to give time online. And so what we want to do is make 5 minutes, 30 minutes of giving, your skills, your time to somebody else in need. And this started off with a free tutoring program that we started at UCSD, and we targeted lower income schools in April. And since then it's grown. We are now piloting with seniors in senior homes who are feeling lonely during this time and don't have the volunteers that they normally have. So if you want to be a part of that, check us out on generategood.co. And then my other baby, which is my Dotstash baby, this is about changing the experience of obtaining menstruation products in public restrooms. I think for anyone who menstruates, you understand that this is probably the most frustrating thing you have definitely better things you'd rather do than try to find a tampon when you need it. So Dotstash is out to change that experience with smart vending machines. Each machine is designed by a women artist, and we have organic menstruation products. So both companies are at early stages. That's it for me.
And Mona, what about your favorite wellness activity?
My favorite wellness activity. I want to give one that's not so generic, like meditation or something, but here's my favorite one. All of my showers, I'm not kidding, I do a candle lit with meditation music, 15 minutes every night. Turn off all the lights, candle lights, and meditation music. It is the most luxurious 15 minutes of my day. So that's my favorite wellness activity.
Awesome, thanks so much for sharing, Mona. Next, can we have Johan introduce himself?
All right. So I'm Johan. I am a graduate from UCSD. I was part of the class of 2019, and I got my bachelor's degree in nanoengineering. One of my missions that I'm on is to make real restorative sleep accessible to anyone. And in doing that, I started one of my company called Pack Wearables. We're currently developing, or actually we've developed a wearable silent alarm to make waking up as enjoyable and energizing as possible, basically solve the problems with the way most of us normally wake up, whether we're using our phone or not even using an alarm. And especially solving the problems around using an alarm when you have a significant other in the room or roommates like in a college dorm. So we've developed that product. We ran our Kickstarter campaign, and now we are pushing that out, hoping to get real sales after this December. Also in alignment with that mission, along the way, the same people involved in starting PAC, we ended up starting a different company. If PAC is there to help you wake up feeling better, this next venture is more oriented around helping you fall asleep more efficiently. Effectively, we developed a melatonin nasal spray to help you start that sleep process on demand, on time. Yeah, so that's what I'm up to as far as entrepreneurship and business goes.
And Johan, your favorite wellness activity?
Currently, I'd say it's just getting outside. Like, I think we've all kind of, with the whole pandemic, we've kind of like reignited our interest in just getting outside and being in nature. And it was especially the case for me. And so like every weekend, if I can just get out and go hit a trail, that's a big benefit to me.
Excellent. Thank you, Johan. Next, we'll have Debbie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie Chen. My UCSD affiliation, I'm kind of a UCSD lifer. I did my bachelor's in biomedical engineering or bioengineering in 2000, what was it, 5? And then I left for grad school, and I actually came back and did 2 postdocs, one at the medical school and one at Scripps Oceanography. And then after that, I worked for a couple of years and then actually came back to the Business Accelerator. At the time, it was called My Startup XX, focused on female entrepreneurs. So yeah, and then currently I'm a entrepreneur in residence with OIC. And my company is called Hydrostasis, and our mission is to make personalized continuous hydration monitoring available for everybody. Currently, that doesn't really exist. Either you look at the color of your urine, brown is bad, right? It's 2020, we should do better. So, you know, we started off in sports, and with the pandemic, we actually had to pivot to serve older adults. And so here we are, we're you know, trying to help older adults monitor their hydration at home. My favorite wellness activity pre-pandemic is Muay Thai, and still is. I was a amateur fighter for a couple years, and just starting to get back to the gym as they start opening up. So yeah, I've also fallen off the fitness horse post-pandemic, but I'm starting to get back in, so it's always fun to punch things.
Keep that in mind, Debbie, and keep my distance. Great, and last but not least, Greg.
Hey everybody, my name is Greg Lemon. Don't really have an affiliation with UC San Diego, but I did graduate from UC Riverside, and that was back in 2009. Since then, I've opened up a couple retail stores in San Diego called Milestone Running, and what we're kind of doing is trying to like change your experience within a retail store. So we are an athletic store, but we do a running analysis and kind of just provide just a much better experience, but also a lot more information geared towards running or walking, trails, or anything like that, nutrition products. And we've been doing it for just about 7 years now. And we've also kind of actually just launched our online retail store as well. But so we do Milestone Running. And I guess my favorite, I don't want to be too obvious with what my activity is, but it is running. I do enjoy running. And that's where my heart is.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Greg. So thank you, panelists, for the introduction. So we're going to dive now right into our questions. So the first one we have on the board. So we mentioned 2020 has been one hell of a journey. So question for the panelists is, how has 2020 affected you and your personal wellness? And Debbie, could we have you start us off?
Yeah, sure. Like I alluded to, you know, I used to work out quite a bit. I would say hard workouts, probably like 3 times a week. I would probably be doing some sort of exercise 5 or 6 days a week. And especially if I'm fighting, that's true. But yeah, after COVID and everything closed, it was really hard, you know, physically, but really mentally to get back, you know, into a routine, and Zoom classes just did not work for me very much. And, you know, I actually have kids too. So it was really just trying to figure out what the heck is going on and why is the world burning. And so yeah, so it was a lot of more mental struggles for me, and then getting the motivation to go outside took me a while. I think I'm just starting to get back into it. Yeah, so it's been a lot of ups and downs for sure. I don't know if that answers the question.
You did. Thank you. I think definitely it's been a turbulent ride for many of us. Thank you, Debbie. And Greg, what about you?
You know, at first it was pretty difficult, and like obviously when we were stuck inside, it made things really rough. But it's actually, I would say, from before the pandemic, things have actually improved for my personal wellness. And I think it's just because it gave me an opportunity to kind of sit back and like reevaluate like things I wanted to be passionate about that I wasn't able to be, or I gave up, like listed all these excuses to why I couldn't do certain things. And so I've definitely like reignited my love for the outdoors, and like going out and like camping and seeing more national parks, and like I'm in the ocean as often as I can be. So certain things where that I completely closed off, even though I'm from Southern California. I picked up surfing, and it's like seriously my favorite thing to do right now in the world. And I probably would have never done that had it not been for the pandemic. So I was able to kind of flip it and turn it into like a positive, even though what we're going through is really difficult, but I've been able to make the best of it, I guess.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, it definitely makes you appreciate living in San Diego, where you could be outdoors pretty much all year round.
Yes.
What about you, Mona?
So for me, similar to Greg, it actually improved my well-being. I would say right before COVID, I was actually like, it was almost like a relief when we had the shutdown, like, oh my God, I don't have to commute, or I actually don't have to go anywhere, because my day would start at 6 a.m. and I probably wouldn't be home until like 8 p.m. I was hardly ever home. And that was my normal routine, even on the weekends. And so like, you know, a lot of that was like, a lot of my meals were eating out or snacking. I think I've eaten out a handful of times during quarantine. I've cooked a lot. Since then, I don't have this 15-hour commute situation, 10 hours of actual driving, 5 hours of trying to find parking on campus. So I don't have to deal with that anymore. Yeah, so I feel like it's improved. I do, I can relate to everyone. I'm sure that the isolation, I do live alone. So it's like, at first it was really, really strange to not be constantly going. And it was an adjustment for sure, not really knowing, like not having that in-person, you know, interactions with my family or my friends, because especially in April or early or like late March, nobody really knew. It was like the scary monster that you really shouldn't be out with other people. Everyone was incredibly careful. You know, we've gotten more lax to it now, but I would say those adjustments have been good. It's allowed me to also identify the things that like are the people that I want to actually spend my time with, as opposed to I'm occupying the same space as you, so we have to spend time together. So it's allowed me to be more selective with who I spend my day with. But yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mona. And Johan, how's 2020 been treating you?
I'll start with the bad. So like when everything first started closing down, and all of the social structures that had kept my day personally together and like in line, when all those fell away, there was a definite feeling of despair at first. And as far as my wellness goes, everything suffered because like the whole structure for me had melted away at that point. So like my sleep routine had gone out the door. Everything I had used to do as far as exercising, like going to the gym, and powerlifting couldn't do that anymore. And so I was sitting there just trying to like figure out how to actually, I didn't really like think about anything for the first month. First month, I was just wallowing in that despair. But the blessing, like everyone's talking about, is that it brought to the forefront the idea of like, what do I actually want to do? And I was able to, as a result, become much more intentional with the things that I did, especially with regards to my wellness. And so I think like right now, I think my overall personal wellness is better than it's ever been, right? So how do I mean that? I was able to effectively like structure my days now without having to worry about things like commutes or these like little minor things that ate up all my time. And with access to all of that, I was able to do everything that I wanted to do out of my day. And maybe I can't go to the gym anymore, and I couldn't buy any weights because those sold out so fast. But I was able to take up a new challenge. And I'm curious to hear more about what Greg has to say from this kind of stuff. But like I got into trail running, I got into mountaineering more seriously. I realized how out of shape I actually was, just lifting weights the whole time. And so I've been able to like really, really improve on those kind of aspects. And just overall, like for one, I'm fairly introverted. So having the not needing an excuse to just lock myself in my room the whole day and just kind of like do my own thing definitely helped out. But yeah, I think on the whole, it was a hard reset. And now things are more of where I'd want them to be.
Great, thank you, Johan. So for our next question, I'd like to ask the panelists, how do you find balance between work and rest? And you all are aspiring, or you're currently entrepreneurs or owners of small businesses. Do you have any suggestions for new entrepreneurs or anyone who's with us in this call today who may want to go into that endeavor, but they are hesitant because they don't really know they have to give up a certain part of their identity or their lives in order to make it successful? So with that, we're going to have Mona start us off.
So I feel like a hypocrite when I answer this question, especially with the title of Wellness and Engagement Manager. So I am the type, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like this. We don't really like to sit still. Like it's one of those things where we might see a solution. We don't really follow the same path as everyone else. And I remember thinking, I'm not normal because I can't sit still. Like my kind of rest is like, I go for a long run, I swim in the ocean, I yoga. Like to me, that's resting. Or it's like, I'm listening to a podcast while I'm walking, and somebody said to me, why can't you just sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix? Like that is resting. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like resting to me. So I would say, how do I find my balance between work and rest? Well, with 3 different pretty fast-paced companies and organizations, I would like, when we work, so I depend heavily on working meetings. And anyone on my team who's ever worked with me knows, like my meetings are so like quick, like we get through a lot. There's very little just talking just to talk unless we're trying to solve a problem or figure something out. A lot of times it's used to actually clear off action items. And so there are definitely more hammer sessions, and then it allows me to break up my day so that I can spend time going running. I can spend time being in the ocean. I can spend time, with my family or my friends. So my suggestion for new entrepreneurs is, first one is rest can look different ways, like can look differently for everybody. And to not feel guilty because you're giving yourself rest and restoring yourself. I think this isn't just for entrepreneurs. I think this goes for students too. What I realize with working with students is that they feel guilty when they are resting because they're not achieving. And to be mindful of when there's binging, like if I'm doing sprints, like, okay, I have to make it through this week because it's finals week. And then all of a sudden it's like another side of that, which is like, as soon as finals is over, it's a crash, or it's like, I'm gonna go party now, or I'm just gonna like not do anything. And it's okay. It's just know that it's okay to do that, but just be mindful of those binge habits of sprints to like crashing, sprints to crashing. And how do you stay? For me, I've had a similar pattern, and it's how do I stay steady? Like kind of if you think about a boat going on a river, it's like, how do we stop doing this ping pong thing and just kind of stay steady throughout your day where you can be productive, but also restore as well. So that is how I find my balance, basically structured calendars, like organizing my calendar, and then spreading out, heavier work tasks throughout the week. And even I do work on the weekends too. So utilizing all the time.
Great, thank you, Mona. And fun fact, this panel came about from a meeting with Mona, and we decided out of a different conversation that we needed to put a panel together about wellness. So here we are today. So that goes to show that these productive meetings can yield to something that's effective and something that's actually in existence. So thank you, Mona.
Thank you.
Debbie, what about you? How do you find balance between work and rest?
Yeah, so this is a funny question for me. I have two small children, they're 3 and 5. So there's not a lot of rest around here. But similar to Mona, it's a different type of rest. It's more of a balance of work and everything else, right? Work and personal, work and family, which I think everybody can relate to, whether you have kids or not. And I think, for me, it's more of, when you're not working, that's really when, your brain is able to be creative, or, all of your best ideas come from the shower, right? Or Mona's amazing baths, right? And so, if you can find the time to do whatever, something else, surfing or trail running or amazing baths, that's really where your brain is free to work out some of these challenges from your work, especially with entrepreneurs. There's just a lot of times there's just no good answer, especially during COVID. There's so much delays, right? Everybody's delayed, shipments are delayed. Especially Johan knows this, that, hardware is always, the iteration is so slow, and, shipments are here and there, and FedEx takes longer, whatever. So I think for me, it's more of a patience, giving yourself and everybody else around you some grace in this post-COVID world. And not try to just like go, which is what we're used to, right? You're sort of this type A entrepreneur, and you want to get things done. But I've noticed that, things have slowed down, and I've enjoyed it a little bit more, and it gives me more presence in my life too, to be able to spend with my kids. And yeah, so I think just, slowing it down, more patience and more grace, just everyone around you, including yourself, is really how, how I sort of tackled this balance. And I guess that's my suggestion, is, don't relate your work performance, or what you think is your work performance, to your self-worth, right? Like, you are not your job. I keep thinking like, man, I have steered my startup through a year of 2020, like that is 7 years than any other time. And, and if I'm able to come out of this and still be successful, like, man, what a story to tell, right? And so I think it's just understanding the situation that we're in right now. Even if you have to close up shop, it's not something that you did wrong, like nobody could have predicted this. And so, yeah, just give yourself grace, do the best that you can do, but also, don't beat yourself up over it, right? So that's really how I think about it.
Great, thank you, Debbie. That's some very, very wise wisdom there. Thank you. Johan, what about you? How do you find balance?
So I kind of don't like the way the question's structured. I'm like reading it right now, and the balance between work and rest makes it sound like there's nothing else. So I guess like work for me is just one of the things that I want to do, and it's the one thing it's of the things that I want to do, it's the one that has a return financially. So for me, it's just kind of balancing everything. And rest is part of that, right? So like for me personally, I am a much worse person when I haven't gotten adequate sleep. And all of my my colleagues let me know that because I show up and I'm just grouchy and impatient. So like part of being responsible in the way that I structure my day personally is making sure that at least in the domain of sleep, I'm being responsible there. But like balance on the whole is I kind of like what Mona was talking about with the boat analogy, right? Like there's a quote or something like without a plan, you're without a plan for your day, you're gonna go through life like a ship without a rudder. So it's a similar thing. You can feel kind of lost if you haven't really like put together that schedule on any level, from a daily basis to weekly and monthly basis. So I'm very meticulous in planning out the things that I want to get done each day and each week. And for a bunch of reasons. One is like as you progress through all of that, you kind of also have like a scoreboard of how well you're doing. And that kind of helps facilitate everything else. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than just like plan everything out, and then you don't really have to worry about balance. Like if you're responsible and you're planning, and you're seeing like, okay, I can't really stay with this task for as long as I feel like I should because there's these other pressing things that I need to attend to, including like my personal well-being. Like I should go out for that run, or I need to make sure that I actually like eat food today, those kind of things. It'll all you'll keep moving forwards, and you won't have to worry about necessarily running into issues like burning out or not doing the things that you otherwise needed to do. So yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, as far as like rest specifically, because sleep is my whole shtick, like you got to make sure that you're actually like accounting for that. It can't be an afterthought, or you just stay up. And just on the topic of sleep itself, the other flip side of that is you can't judge yourself by other people's standards. A lot of the research on sleep makes like these really broad claims, like, oh, everybody needs to get 8 hours of sleep a day, and so if you're not doing that, you could feel guilty. But there is a more personal level to what's most effective when it comes to sleep. And if you actually take the time to maybe experiment a little bit and understand yourself, like for me personally, I get up early no matter what, so I need to make sure I'm going to bed early enough so I'm getting adequate sleep. But some of my colleagues are just crazy. Like two of them in particular, they start hitting their stride when it comes to work at like 10 p.m., right when I'm winding down for the day. And so like before I used to have like intervention saying, hey, you need to go to bed earlier. But now it's like, okay, maybe we don't need to start the workday at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. and we can shift things around so that you're at your best and I'm at my best. And if that means compromising the traditional schedule, then we'll do that. So yeah, when it comes to sleep, make sure it's a priority, but also make sure you're trying to understand yourself and not just following a vague guidance.
Great, thank you, Johan. I'll be sure I go to sleep at a proper time tonight. Thanks for the reminder. And what about you, Greg?
I'll start out by saying I do require 8 hours of sleep. But I'll say, especially for like a new entrepreneur, I would say do not be afraid to be selfish with your time. Especially when you're starting out, there's obviously you're going to be focused on whatever you're pursuing. But then there's going to be a lot of like family or friends that are trying to take time from you as well. And then on top of all the things that you're thinking about. So for me, I think it was like just really important that I'm like, all right, I need to get X amount of hours of sleep. And if I don't, then I'm not a high functioning adult. And so I'm very like protective of my time, my sleep. And then like, even like I take naps, especially if I don't get enough sleep, because there are going to be those nights and I'm like, all right, I need to make sure that I get in this this rest. And then like, especially at the beginning too, like for us, at least when we got our stores going, like we worked every single day for 2 years, and which was fine. And at that time too, it was kind of fun. But at the same time, like we needed to have a social life. So to keep like like the balance too was, I lived with my business partner Chad, and it was like a rule, like when we get back to the house, like we don't talk about work, and it's completely off the table, and we just kind of keep that separate from what's actually happening at our store. And then like to keep like our social lives going too, I would try to integrate things that I enjoy doing, like exercise. And I would try to invite my friends to do things. So I'd be like, hey, let's go on a run. Then I can kind of kill two birds with one stone and like get my run in, my emotional, my health, my physical health, but then also I'm getting like my social dose at the exact same time. And that might not work for everybody. Obviously, it's going to be different things that make you happy, but like my physical health is probably one of the most important things. So I always try to, it's nice to have people who have that same mindset, and so we can enjoy that part of it. But yeah, I would just say really don't be afraid to be selfish with your time. And if you are afraid of that, like the people that are around you that want to support you will totally understand when you're like, hey, I need to do this, get this sleep, eat this or whatever. I feel like most people are understanding when you're pursuing something, your own business. So yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Moving on to our next question. So this is around the topic of imposter syndrome. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with the idea of imposter syndrome, it's when an individual doubts their own skills, talents, or accomplishments. And they have this feeling that they don't belong and have this internalized fear as though they might be exposed as a fraud. So the question to the panelists are, have you encountered imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome it? And Johan, we'll have you start off, please.
Okay, cool. So I personally haven't encountered imposter syndrome. I've never like really walked into a situation where I felt like the situation or success or whatever it was a result of luck, or that I somehow didn't belong there. And I think that's like a lot of it actually has to do with the back. And we talk about athletics when it comes to health so often, but it does come with, I think, my background growing up of competitive athletics, and like especially recently when it came to competitive powerlifting, because it's not like I think about it in the way of like success in that domain would be something like squatting 500 pounds, let's say, but it's not that you just walked into the gym randomly and you squatted 500 pounds. It was like this whole process where a year ago you couldn't even squat 400, and you showed up every day to the gym, and now all of a sudden that weight fell, and you don't succeed in that, and then all of a sudden think, oh man, I didn't deserve this. You're like, okay, cool, the hard work paid off, I did this, and now you're thinking about what's next. And that what's next part is also like pretty important. If your goals are cohesive, it's not like you hit any single one and then think, wow, I'm done. Did I deserve to do this, or do I deserve to be here? If your goals are big enough, I feel like you're looking forwards enough where you don't really, or at least I personally, again, since I haven't interfaced with this problem, I don't know that I can speak from the perspective of somebody who has, but at least when I think about it, I am not so much worried about those questions. I'm only worried about if I'm doing what I want to do, and then like quantifying my progress along that direction. But I do like some of my colleagues, we've had colleagues and friends have had discussions about all of this. And so like, I get it, but it's, if you're conscious of the fact that you've been working so hard to even get here in the first place, and you have that perspective of how far you've come, like what Debbie was talking about with like navigating a business through all the chaos of COVID, regardless of what happens afterwards, right? You know where you want to be, you know what you've done and gone through. And that's, for me anyway, that's been enough to really keep those thoughts at bay, I guess. So yeah, again, I haven't interfaced with it. interfaced with it, I don't have an answer for how I overcame it. But at least that's my perspective on the idea of whether or not this is all just luck, and whether or not I deserve to be here. So.
All right, great. Thank you, for sharing your thoughts. And turn it over to Mona.
I felt imposter syndrome this week. My lawyer gave me this like legal thing, and I was like, "What is this? It's like a foreign language." And I was like, I swear I have an MBA, but like I went to school. But it was, you know. So I would say there are moments where the learning curve is so steep, and it feels like you don't know if you're even qualified to even be reading this email. And that's how I felt this week. But knowing that it's a learning curve and it's okay to ask for help or ask for clarification, and breaking down those steps. So it's like, okay, I need to clarify this particular point. Like, why am I confused? You know, or why do I feel lost? You know, but knowing that you're deserving, you chose this path, and you are deserving of the outcomes, and whether it's luck, whatever you want to call it, I do believe that entrepreneurs they're definitely not on the normal path that everyone else takes. And it's scary. It is scary. I will say I've never felt more thrilled. It's exciting. I'm so happy to be in the rooms I'm in. I'm so happy to be doing what I call my soul work, to be helping people, to know what my purpose is. But at the same time, it is scary, and it can feel very isolating too. Like, is anyone else experiencing what I'm experiencing? Which I know a lot of people that have experienced imposter syndrome, at least the students that I've talked with, it's like they got into UCSD and they go into their first quarter and they're like, wait, I'm about to fail. You know, this quarter system. We all came from a UC. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I remember that quarter system shift was so hard. Like, you know, and sometimes it's that learning curve, and then you get the hang of it. So I would say it's normal to feel like you don't belong for that moment, but just knowing that there's a learning curve to it, and that if you just break it down into small steps and do the next best step. Like, think of like this, you know, because a lot of times imposter syndrome comes with anxiety and this overwhelming feeling, and then it feels like it's kind of crushing. And it's almost like paralysis. You don't really know what the next best move is, but you know, I think that's the question is, okay, what can I do in this moment, and what is the next best step? But it's absolutely normal, and I think a lot of people feel it. It really just depends on how you're able to pivot from that moment.
Great, thank you, Mona. You made me remember my first quarter at UCSD when I was an undergrad, feeling exactly the way you did, thinking, I don't belong here. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Next, do we have Greg?
All right. So I guess for me, or for I'll say we, because I'll speak for Chad and I, my business partner. I'll say, fake it till you make it is what we kind of did. And there are like a number of times, like when there's especially starting a business, signing leases, and there's like a lot of times they recommend getting like lawyers involved in doing all these things. And we're like, first, we don't have any money to hire a lawyer to even look over a lease agreement or anything like that, let alone all these like contracts that we have with any of the vendors or brands that we want to sell in the store. So we kind of honestly just pretended like we knew what we were talking about. And we did that by doing like a lot of research and just like reading up on like the proper verbiage of like negotiating contracts and things like that. And we just kind of like stuck to our guns and we're pretended like we knew exactly what we were doing, and we definitely did not. But it was the most satisfying thing. And still to this day, there's like moments where I'm like, I can't believe we just pulled that off. And it's just because I feel like you just need to be like strong-willed and know that you do do belong, be yourself, and just kind of make sure that you're like prepped on, so that if questions come about, like you can, I don't know, you're just like fully prepared. I'll use like an example. When we signed our lease for I'll do our first store, North Park store. They recommended like, oh, get your lawyer to go over the contract and all that kind of stuff. I was like, we're not getting a lawyer. So we were able to negotiate down our lease to almost like half of what they're asking. And that was just from us being like pushing back and just like being stubborn, but also being like firm on like what we believed in and what we thought we were worth, I guess, and what we wanted to pay. And they went for it. And that's kind of happened like consistently throughout our 7 years of business. And we're not jerks about it or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, we just carry ourselves to, we act like we know what we're doing, I'll say. And a lot of times you don't as an entrepreneur in whatever your perspective business is going to be, and that's okay. And I think that most people just need to understand that other people are looking at you too, and they've been in your similar situation. And whether it is raising a child or starting a business or going to school, like you just, I don't know, you figure it out, and it takes time, but stay strong and do your research, and I don't know, it'll come. That's all I got for you.
Great, thank you, Greg. So it sounds like the School of Google has been helpful in your endeavors, and also just being persistent. Thank you. And what about you, Debbie?
Yeah, I think probably, at least if I take it at face value out of this group, I probably have it the worst. I think the problem there is, you know, when you go get a PhD, the entire training is to doubt everything, including yourself. And the whole thing is, when you're writing academic papers, you submit it through a peer review, where then the entire point of the process is to crush you and tell you that your data is you know, not good. And so, you know, throughout these years of, you know, doubting everything in a scientific way, and then sort of having that taught to you, I believe imposter syndrome is taught. And even before graduate school, like my first quarter talking about, you know, UCSD undergrad, I had this academic advisor that looked on my paper, and it said my major was bioengineering. Bioengineering is very top ranked at UCSD. And he kind of laughed at me and just said, oh, well, are you going to stick with it? And I'm like, I completely don't know what you mean, because I'm a freshman. I don't even know what bioengineering is. And so, but the idea was that about 50% of the incoming students, you know, with a bioengineering major drop out after sophomore year. And so his idea was, you know, are you going to stick with it? I don't know if it's because I was a female, you know, or if it was because of anything else that he saw on that sheet of paper. But I kind of just like got really upset about it, right? Because I'm like, who are you? And I think it was just like an upperclassman that had like a part-time job at the academic, you know, resource center or something like that. And, you know, not to, you know, say bad about that person. I can't even remember who that was, but, you know, it's something that's taught to you, right? And I immediately I thought, well, maybe I'm not supposed to make it, or maybe I'm not supposed to be here or whatever, right? So, and then throughout the whole process of grad school, that's really what you're taught. So for me, how I overcome it, and I didn't overcome it, it's a daily struggle, right? Just like Mona, every situation that you're put into, there's people that are smarter than you, people that know better, that people that, even if they don't know better, you think they know better, or people that are judging you. Like the whole point, you know, of a tech startup is like, when you go pitch everywhere, every time you're pitching, someone is judging on your passion, right? Like you feel like this needs to exist in the world, and you're trying your heart and soul and tears to get this to happen. And somebody's like, well, how are you going to make $100 million in 5 years? And you're like, what? You know, so it's a lot of it is just, you know, not listening to all of these sort of ridiculous things that people are saying. And then also, you know, using that and turning that, you know, back into sort of encouragement for yourself is like, yes, I am going to make it. In fact, most people that graduated in my class for bioengineering, because it's like the classes are so packed that I had to take summer school classes, but I graduated in 4 years. Most people graduate in 5, you know, and it's just like, I was like, yeah, you know, take it to you, that guy that I don't remember his name, right? And so it's, you know, it's what you make of the situation. And, you know, it's all about lifelong learning, right? The more you know, the more you know you don't know, and that's okay. You know, so yeah, so it's a daily struggle for me. So I haven't overcome it, but you use it as your motivation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debbie. So we're going to our next question. How do you personally identify signs of burnout, and what strategies have worked for you to combat that? So burnout, I know burnout is real for a lot of us. So Greg, would you like to start us off?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll start off with like an example of when we got our second store going. There's just like a lot of things we were trying to move a lot quicker than we probably should have. And I was probably working from like doing build out of the store from like 8 a.m. to like midnight for like just a couple weeks or so. And it was like every night I would go home and I would just like literally scream the F word and be like, what am I doing? Like, I'm losing my mind. Like, I can't sleep. When I go to sleep, I have nightmares, and it was just like really, really bad. And this happened for like a while, and I was like just super stressed out. So I'll say for me, kind of going back to Johan, it was like sleep. And I definitely was not getting enough sleep. I wasn't eating properly. I was literally just probably getting like fast food or whatever I could quickly just to like get through the day. And then I had like to kind of get over it, I guess. You know, I just like took a step back, and I'll say, I'm single, I live alone, I don't have kids. And luckily I didn't have any college debt. So I'll preface with that, but I just had this moment one day when I was just like literally in my car, and I'm just like about to cry. I'm like having a breakdown. And I'm like, you know what? There are people out there who have like multiple children, multiple jobs, and they're trying to keep a roof over their head and feed their children. And I'm only worried about me. And so I kind of was like, what am I doing? Like, what's going on in my life? And I kind of just like had this like moment of, you know what? You're not organized. You are just kind of flying. You're just out of control. So I kind of just sat down, wrote down a plan, got really, really organized with how I was going to do the build out, cover these bills, get these employees, continue all the work at our other store. And like, seriously got like beyond organized, which is, I'm somewhat organized, but it was just like, you know what, I need to like refocus my energy. And that was literally the second that I figured that out, which really should have been the first thing, but you just have, I don't know, your brain's all over the place a lot of the time when you are wearing multiple hats for a business. But like, once I figured that out, that was like a game changer. And seriously, ever since then, my organization skills are like on point, but also like my mental health. Like anytime I feel like I'm losing control, I just like write it down. Even I'll write down my dreams. So when I wake up, I'm like, all right, what does this mean? Just all these different things, and just kind of analyze what's going on. Yeah, try to figure it out that way. And also like, I talk to my parents. They're very smart people, and they help keep me calm. But yeah, stay organized. That's all I got for you.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Yes, I definitely agree. Sometimes there's just this need to just dump everything that's going on in here onto paper, or just to talk to someone, and just once you see it all laid out, you're like, you know what? Let's do this. So I can completely relate. Debbie, what about you?
Yeah, I actually burned out twice in 2 years. So not a good sign. The way that my burnout manifests is just physically. So I had this like random stomach ache that wouldn't go away. And I went to the doctor, they couldn't figure out, like literally I did tests and like it wasn't any of the above. And at the end of the session with my doctor, it was just sort of like, well, it could be stress. And so, you know, just learning from that, you know, trying to handle, you know, 2 little kids plus a startup. So, you know, 3.5 kids. And it really is just learning to take care of yourself, right? And you know, that's why I love Johan so much, because sleep obviously is a big deal. And I've, you know, bought a lot of, not a lot, but I've bought a couple pairs of shoes from Greg as well. And, you know, just to go out and be physically active, I noticed that, you know, as like my mood and my physical activities are trending together, right? So yeah, just being sort of aware of your body and how you feel. Like, why are you so grouchy? Oh, it's because I haven't exercised in 3 days, or I haven't been sleeping well, or I haven't been eating well, or all of the above. Because, you know, the more that you work and burn yourself out, the less you're able to take care of your business or your children or anybody that you're trying to take care of, right? So I think probably it was my mom that taught me, you know, health before anything, right? Because your health, not everybody else's health, your health is important, because if you're not healthy, you can't build a business. If you're not healthy, you can't be a good parent. You can't be a good friend. You can't be a good human, right? Like, if you're not mentally and physically healthy, you really can't do anything. You can't make money. You can't, you know, so all of these goals and pursuits are not going to be realized if you don't take care of yourself. So here's this whole trend of self-help or sort of treat yourself and stuff like that. And it's become a little gimmicky, but it really is true, right? Like, you can't pour from an empty cup, stuff like that. So just being attuned to your body, and, you know, having people that you trust on your team and in your family. If you have a partner, they're going to tell you, right, when you're super grouchy. Listen to them, right? And don't take it, you know, in the wrong way. Is like, you know, if your team is telling you, hey, you know, what's going on, something's going on, then maybe you should listen. Or if your body is telling you, hey, you know, something's going on, then you should listen. So yeah, just being attuned to stuff like that, to really avoid some of these things and take care of yourself.
Great, thank you, Debbie.
Do you mind if I add something really quick?
Yeah, go for it, Greg.
And I think it's also, you almost become your own therapist, and you have to like ask yourself, like, when you hit this like breaking point, because everyone does it, it happens, and it's like, just like, how do you deal with it? And so you just kind of have to and I'll say, like, in my car, when I was like having that breakdown, I was like, all right, take a deep breath, like, center yourself, and be like, what's going on? Am I eating right? No. All right, we need to fix that. Am I sleeping? No. All right, so where is it stemming from? And then it was kind of like, just like kind of working backwards and figure out, like, what am I doing? And then it kind of came down for me. I was like, you're not organized, so your brain's just like scattered and like just overworking. So you need to like start with that, and then just, you always have like just always check yourself, and you have to be your own therapist sometimes. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Because definitely, I mean, at the end of the day, we know what we need if we just really take a deeper look inside. What about you, Johan?
Can I add one more thing? Sorry, Christy. Being yourself, your own therapist is a good thing, but also a real therapist is helpful as well. Let's talk about getting a real therapist. That's somebody that's trained to do that. And I have done that as well. I've noticed a lot of entrepreneurs are sort of working through their own personal traumas as they try to build their business, me included. And a lot of these personal traumas are rearing its ugly head as you get burned out. And so definitely seek out professional advice. If you can't afford it, it's very expensive. You know, there's apps and stuff like that that you can use that are a little bit cheaper, but definitely a therapist is important.
I second that, Debbie.
Excellent. Thank you, Debbie. What about you, Johan?
Okay. So on the one hand, I do think burnout's like one of the entrepreneur's like badges of honors, if it makes sense. Like everyone's going to go through that at some point, so I don't think it should be entirely feared too much. To me, at some level, it means that you've figured out there's so much work that actually needs to be done, and you have the motivation to actually want to chip away at it. You just don't know what you're doing wrong yet, and so you're eventually going to run into that. And there'll be points in time too. Like I think for me, the big one was actual like delegation and allocation of work. There was a time where I felt like we were just moving so slowly. So like I effectively like took over one of our team's like tasks for a week because it had been taking like weeks longer than it should have. And I was like, I was pulling all-nighters for like 3 nights straight, and I made progress on it. But then I remember talking to one of my friends about the problem itself, and like within a day he had a solution for it, and it was just I was laughing about it afterwards. I realized like, okay, I'm just doing this wrong. Like I'm not thinking about this right, and I wasn't strategizing effectively in how to actually get the task at hand done. I had my ego tied into making sure that I was behind it, pushing it forwards, without really taking a step back to think. So yeah, like echoing what both Greg and Debbie said, it's indicative that you're doing something wrong, and if you can honestly reflect on where you're at, you can kind of figure out a way through it. 2 things that I think help in that regard is, and everybody's different, but for me, not making work like the only center of my world, or more specifically the only center of my day, kind of helps avoid that. If there's other things that I want to do, that I kind of make a priority and I'm responsible in fulfilling them, it helps avoid just like sitting there and doing nothing but whatever the task is at hand. And the other thing too is like entrepreneurs have a big fear of failure at various levels and at various times. But one of the really big things that helped me, and it's something I think I've talked about before in a basement event, is defining what failure actually means. Like a concrete roadblock at which point you're like, okay, everything failed, it's done, and we walk away from it. So for us, that was making the final version of our product and not being able to sell it because people didn't want it. Not necessarily the scale economics of it, but literally like if we were trying to demo this to somebody and everyone we tried it out with was just like, I don't see the value in this, I wouldn't put my money behind it. And we're like, okay, we did all of our testing. We knew that we'd get to this point, but at the end of the day, it didn't fly off the shelf the way we wanted to. That's failure. But what that allows for us to do is just release all of the stress behind worrying about if we're failing along the way. Meaning like if a certain task isn't going as fast as it needs to, that's okay. There's no like definite timeline around failure. It's just that we're progressing towards that. And if we're making an honest effort, we can keep pushing effectively without necessarily stressing ourselves out over whether or not our inefficiencies or whatever we're doing wrong or whatever we don't know, stressing out about whether that's going to be the end of us, because we know what the end of us is going to look like. And until we get there, we're not going to quit. And that required a certain level of commitment, which also helped improve our whole process. But burnout usually stems from not having clarity in those kind of things. Like there's times, like, of course, when you have a deadline where maybe you have to stay up and really push, but most days it requires a level of responsibility as a founder to just be able to walk away from whatever's at hand work-wise and just say, all right, I need to do something else. I need to go to bed. I need to eat, whatever it is. And then come back the next day to take care of business.
Great, thank you for sharing, Johan. And how about you, Mona?
So for me, very similar to Debbie, well, I've burnt out 3 different times, and specifically because I ended up in the hospital all 3 times. So mine manifests definitely, it's physical. And for me, it wasn't a stomach ache, it was kidney stuff. And so it was very serious. So, and I want to be very clear that burnout is different than stress. It's not the same thing as I'm really stressed out right now. Burnout, it's similar to kind of touching on what Johan said. It's like a clarity thing. It's a misalignment to your joy. So for entrepreneurs, you know, so much of this is play. It's so fun. Like there's so much of it that is just like thrilling and it's so cool. It's freaking scary, but it's so cool and it's yours. It is yours. right? Success or failure, it is yours. And when we're misaligned with that joy, that play, and we're in trenches too long with that. What I mean by that is if, like, when you're doing strike, for me, like when I'm thinking of, when I'm taking my entire team, like, okay, we're going on this path, we're doing it this way, and it's just not landing for whatever reason, it's just not landing. And the team is relying on you to like perform or to make the right decisions, especially as a founder. That's when I've burnt out, is like constantly, like the rest comes with it for sure. I think Ariana Huffington said this, I had the chance to see her speak a couple years ago, and she asked, like, who here knows what percentage, if you don't even look at your phone, what percentage is your battery, like on your phone, right? Like, do we kind of, can we, like, maybe it's at 40%, or I think I know it's at 60% right now. But do you know what your percentage, your battery, your internal reservoir is at this moment? If it's at 5%, if it's at like 25%, if it's at 50%, how can you restore? Because it's important. And I think it's more important than knowing what your battery level is on your phone. And I feel like so much of my habits, it was not checking in and doing that. So I've learned the really hard way that I can't afford to actually keep going down that path of, again, sprints, like hammer sessions, 2 weeks, like Greg said, like 2 weeks of tremendous amount of work where it's like day in, day out. And it's no longer fun, right? Like, it's just work and you're about to have a breakdown. For me, I know when I'm about to burn out when I can't stop working. Like, I had this actually a couple weeks ago where I should be resting, but I feel like it was almost, it's like your nervous system's response to keep checking emails or to keep checking your phone. So know it's tied to your nervous system, and that nervous system does affect a lot of other things, and it manifests in other ways. So, and I think this is a big reason why, Christine, that we collaborated on this, because like Johan said, for entrepreneurs and startups, specifically for tech startups, I feel like it's a badge of honor. Like, this is the culture. You either, when you're an entrepreneur, you're expected to burn out. And that, I feel like, is not okay. I don't feel like we should be compromising our health in order to chase dreams. And so that's a big reason why we had this particular workshop, because I do feel like business leaders, not just entrepreneurs, but business leaders, it's a culture that does need to change. And coming from personal experience, it's not something you want to be on. I would say this: if you don't stop yourself, your body will stop you. Like, if you don't stop yourself, your body will stop you. And, for the first UCSD kids especially, it's like, you're still really young, your body is resilient. But when you get into your 30s, like me, it doesn't pivot like that. Like, you can't. And so, yeah, just know that you do. My suggestion is, if you are feeling signs of burnout, and it is different than just general stress or just stress because of a crunch period during your for work. Stop. Like Greg said, he identified what is it, like, lay it out, like, what is it that's actually, what are your top 3 drainers? Like, what is your top 3 joy drainers at this moment? And then what can you do to either stop the bleed, is what I call it. And then because just it's, you're allowing it. So just so you know, you have a choice. Like, you don't actually have to do anything, right? Like, I can choose not to be here in this moment. You have a choice for that. And one last point is that it's not just work that are drainers, it is people too. So family members, your intimate partners, your relationships, knowing how to set boundaries, not only with work, but with the people you allow in your life. And I keep putting that word allow, because you're empowered to make a choice of who you allow, what you allow, and how you proceed about your day. So those are my tips.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mona. So I appreciate you, Mona, for choosing to be here with us today. Just want to say thank you. So with all this talk about burnout and all the negativity when it comes to just trying to find balance, let's kind of flip it around and see what we can do about it. So the question for the panelists is, do you have a support network? And how did you find one, and how have you used it, for those of you who have one? So first, I'd like to invite Debbie to address this question.
Yeah, support network is so important. I have, I guess I would have two separate support networks. One is work-related support network, and one is just like personal friends support network that know what you're doing, but also has nothing to do with what you're doing. So, you know, for a personal support network, you know, I have business mentors, but I think the ones that really help in sort of times, especially since we're talking about burnout, is other founders. You know, other founders, either in your, you know, current state of your business, or a couple steps ahead, right? So for me, I would say we're a seed stage company. So people that are now at Series A or something like that, you know, because they just went through what you went through. A lot of times, you know, when you're starting a company, you get a lot of mentors that come in. They're like, oh yeah, I started a company in 1965. And you're like, that's not helpful. Things are different now. I understand you have, you know, 35 years of experience, but the things that you're saying are not resonating with me. Or like finding support networks that are within your sort of your own, that you resonate with, right? So for example, I seek out female founders in specific, you know, specifically, you know, minorities or stuff like that, where I feel a little bit more closer to, you know, my background or the way that I see things. You know, so those are the sort of business network. And then the personal network, I have some people that are really successful in what they do, but are completely have nothing to do with what I'm doing. So for example, you know, I have friends that are doctors or you know, lawyers, or they're very successful in their area, but they have their challenges as well. So we kind of just chat about it, and it's really interesting the perspectives that they get, and also really interesting the similarities that we get. Most of my support network is female, so we talk about gender issues a lot. You know, my issues with gender issues in tech, you know, and one of my good friends is an attorney, and she's talking about how, you know, her firm is so anti, you know, moms, and so she actually had to quit her job because she went on maternity leave, for example. And you know, so these types of backs and forths and you know, personal and business is super helpful, you know, to be a well-rounded, you know, founder, or just a human in general.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debbie. And next, we'll have Johan share.
Cool. This whole panel is actually kind of fun for me, because part of my support network in the business sense is already on here. Dr. Chen actually helped us out a lot, like a couple, let's say a year plus ago, when we were just hitting our stride, and she was like way ahead of us, but has gone through this kind of stuff before too. And so being able to bounce questions off of a mentor like that was super important, because I was especially jaded towards mentors, because I interfaced with the problem that Dr. Chen was talking about too, where you have, there's the people who make themselves available might not necessarily be the best people that you should be interfacing with, let's say, because there is something to be said about somebody who's so willing to give away their advice that they feel like they're right, and that you, especially me at the time I was a student, it was just, it wasn't constructive. But then talking to Dr. Chen, who's also in the wearable space to us, along with us, was like super helpful in getting clarity. Also on the business side of things, my co-founders are stellar. I'm lucky because I'm not a solo founder in that regard. And we've developed like, one of the first things we developed was just solid communication, not just in the tasks that we had at hand, but also in how we were feeling about them. And just generally how we thought the business was going. And so being able to just like say, hey, let's go for a drive right now and just talk this out. And also being able to talk to them about things that were going on in life. Like, because when we started this company, we were all students. There was a lot of like existential stress about like, is this what we should be doing? Should we be trying to get like a proper corporate job instead? What are our parents going to think? All of these different things. And so actually going through it with colleagues and co-founders who were coming through that similar experience really helped. And it also built, like, made the team much closer. Outside of work, I strongly agree with what Dr. Chen said about being able to talk to friends that aren't related to what you're doing, but are also killing it, because it kind of helps you put in perspective of like, okay, maybe I could be doing this a little bit better. Maybe I'm like making mistakes elsewhere. And also just like drawing general inspiration from the people around you is super helpful. The last benefit, and probably the biggest benefit to me, especially during this whole COVID thing, is I'm back at home with my parents. And so like being able to have whatever day you have at work and then have that not really matter, like being able to just go to dinner and, you know, like whatever my mom cooked for dinner is just what we're eating, and we're talking about that, or talking about like a show or something else, is super helpful. And of course, they're also always there to listen to whatever problems that I have. And so it feels much better to be like here as opposed to the apartment that I was in with all my like roommates and everything else. You're like, it's just perpetually cycling stress. So yeah, but as far as how to find a support network goes, you have to keep pushing and figuring that out. Like, there's always going to be questions that you don't have the answer to. So part of the function of a founder's job is to look for those answers, and usually they come in the form of a mentor. And so along the way, you'll find bad mentors, but you'll find really stellar ones, and that ultimately helps you deal with what you're going through. Because honestly, like anything you've gone through, someone else who's further along in their business is probably interfaced with as well. It's not like this problem's insurmountable. And so having that level of clarity too, and being able to constantly reach out is always helpful.
Right, great, Johan. Thank you. And we'll turn it over to Greg.
Kind of what Johan was saying too is like with a co-founder, I'll say, well, one thing, like to any of my friends who are pursuing some kind of entrepreneurship, I always recommend like getting a business partner of some kind. I think that's like probably one of the most important things, is having a partner or partners to like discuss problems, tell you no, that's a bad idea, and like bounce ideas off of each other. I think to me it's like by far most important thing. You need like a yin and yang kind of thing. And I always joke, like, if I were running this business by myself, we'd run out of money immediately. And then Chad, my business partner, if he were running it by himself, it probably wouldn't go, no offense, Chad, because I think he's on here, it wouldn't go as far, but we are yin and yang because I keep it going, but he keeps it level. So there, you definitely need that balance. But also like, and one thing I always recommend too, and what you guys were saying is, like, you can find mentors pretty much anywhere. They don't have to be related to your industry. And so for even me, and luckily for a small business and we're a retail store, like we have like shops next door to us, and we'll go talk to our neighbors like, man, we're dealing with this problem. They'll talk about their problems. And it's almost like retail space, but like Friends, the show, like we all kind of walk next door, and like it's a great little neighborhood feel, and that works. And it goes not for just like our particular block or shopping center. Like we will reach out to other restaurant owners or gyms or whatever else that aren't related to our industry. And I don't know, we talk about things, especially during the pandemic with everything that was going on and like all the different loan options and whatever else, and this constantly evolving, I don't know, everything that we're in right now is just constantly changing. So we always are reaching out to each other to like as a support network. And I'll say, like, to give people hope of like, just know that people are always willing to help, especially other small business owners. People are willing to give you advice. You can take it for what it is. A lot of times we get really bad advice and we know it, and like, okay, cool, I'm not doing that. But that was also a good little nugget that you gave me somewhere else. So I don't know, you can find, don't be afraid to reach out to people are willing to listen, and most people are willing to give you advice no matter what. Like, everyone has a story and it's different than yours. So it's important to listen and ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid. That's all.
Right, great. Thank you, Greg. And what about you, Mona?
Definitely have a support network. My dad is a big one. My parents are both big ones. Like Greg, I call my parents when I'm freaking out, like when it gets really, really bad. And, they usually put into perspective, like, are you healthy? Like, yeah, I am actually. And then, so, okay, sweetheart, go to sleep now. Yeah, like, my family is huge. Like, I'm very close to my family. My girls, I would say, other founding women. I think I continue to want to grow this network because my experience has been different. Especially within a tech startup, like Generate Good is a tech mobile app that we're building. Dotstash has hardware. So I have both. And then it also is very brand heavy. So I, need a lot of support in terms of just not even to tell me what to do, but damn, like, just to talk, like, have a drink and just be like, you're in it too? Yeah, I'm in that. So I think having that help. Setting a culture with my team. So I went on vacation earlier this month, and my entire team, and I say all three of them, from UCSD, Dotstash, and Generate Good, they were all like, you need to go. Like, do not answer any calls, do not answer any emails. And when I got back, I saw that my co-founder was like, she took care of a lot of the questions that I would normally answer. And so knowing that, and I would do the same for her. So keeping that dynamic of trust, and that the culture of taking care of yourself also extends to your team. And so that know that when you're taking, like Debbie said, when you're restoring yourself, you're also doing a service for everyone else. And so in addition to that, I do have a therapist, definitely, like, when you need it, especially when you're going through a transition or a hard time, use it. It doesn't have to be all the time. It just could be during moments of transition or when you're going through stuff. I would say that not one person is going to be it for you. I used to have this misconception that my partner would be the one to be everything and all of it. And sometimes they just don't want to, like, they want a happy person when they get, when you get home from work. They don't want to be you don't want to be like, what is it, leftovers? Like, give your energy, like, that's like the end of the day. It's like your family, your partners get what's left over, so knowing that not one person is it, especially for a startup, there's so many needs and demands and things. And like Greg said, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, I actually spoke with Greg last week, and he was like, hey, I got some advice. And I'm like, oh my God, that like just saved me. Like, even if we don't go through with it, like, that was a relief, like, to know that you understand, and to have that backing, or just knowing that that person is there listening to that struggle. So just knowing that that's very much appreciated is helpful, but that's my advice.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mona. So I know we're getting toward the end of our panel, but I do invite all of our participants to ask their questions if they have any in the chat. We had a couple come in already. So this one is a specific quick question for Greg. Someone would like to know if your stores are currently open right now.
We are open, and I'll say we got lucky because for retail stores, we only had to close for like a month or so. And yeah, so we are currently open. Just wear your mask, please.
Great, thank you, Greg. And I have another question. This is for all the panelists. If you had more time, what skills would you learn or improve right now during quarantine? So I invite the panelists to mute themselves and chime in. So if you had more time, what skills would you learn or improve right now during quarantine?
I think for me, well, it ebbs and flows, but earlier on when everything was shut down, I read a lot. And I'm one of those people that's like, I buy more books than I can read. So I have this backlog of like 1 million books that I hope one day I will get through. And, you know, when most things were shut down, you know, March, April-ish, I was able to read a lot. And, you know, I personally like to read sort of memoirs, just understanding what other people went through, especially, you know, people that have built successful companies, you know, stuff like that. So it wasn't a specific thing that I was learning, but, you know, just all the different stories and the trials and tribulations people have gone through. Most recently, I read this book called Breathe. It was life-changing because, you know, talking about the importance of breath, you know, it was, yeah, so everybody should read that book for wellness for sure. Yeah, and then just, you know, I think everybody touched on this too, is like you have more time to be more in touch with your inner self these days. So I've been really just trying to figure myself out, you know, what I'm feeling at a certain point in time, why I'm feeling like that, and what I need to do about it to sort of avoid, you know, whatever anxiety attack that I was having that day.
Thank you, Debbie. Any of the other panelists want to chime in?
Well, Generate Good came from, like, started off with the COVID. I never thought I would ever be building a mobile app. That was a surprise. So I am learning, I think there's a question on here about design. So I learned how to like work with a UX team, and now we're in the actual development, on the back end development. So it's a learning curve, but that's what I'm actively learning, I guess.
For us, I guess we use it as an opportunity to like reinvent ourselves like completely. And there's like things that we've been like progressing towards in the future. We're like, all right, we're gonna have to have, because we're a brick and mortar store, we take a lot of pride in that. It's like people coming in and experiencing our retail space, but we know that in the future we must have a very good online store and website. And so when the pandemic hit, we were like, all right, sales are gonna drop significantly. Luckily, they didn't as much as we thought they would, but it was like immediately, it triggered so it's myself, Chad's we're the original founders, and then Julie, who's our first employee, who's a badass. She's now a partner. So the three of us, we kind of just sat down and we're like, all right, we need to figure out what's next. And immediately it was like, all right, we need to create this online platform so people can shop from us anywhere in the country and support us, because that's what people want to do during this time, is support small businesses as much as they can and have some kind of normality without going into a shop. So we did that very, very quickly. And that probably wouldn't have happened had it not been for the pandemic. It just kind of expedited the whole process. So if you want to buy from us online, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we launched an online website. That's all, our retail space.
Great, thank you, Greg. So in the interest of time, we just have time for one more question. So this is a question for all the panelists. This is from Ryan. He would like to know, he wants to hear about the sacrifices you all had to make while starting up. How did you get funding to start? How did you change, adapt, evolve the business plan?
I can say, for me, I went through the traditional route after college. You know, like I've been at UCSD for 13 years, believe it or not. I am that old. And, you know, and I always knew something was missing in my life. Like I knew that I was always innovative. And I would say I was like very entrepreneurial, and it was time to do something of my own. And I would say I never thought I would spend, so I put in my own money to start Dotstash, a lot of my own money actually. And, it's in the tens of, thousands. So it's not, it wasn't insignificant, but, and I also was very willing, I put my house on the market. I was like, that's how much I believe in it. Like, and I knew at that point that there was like no going back. So that those are the sacrifices you're willing to make. And I didn't even blink. Like before I was like very, conservative with my money. I was like invested in all these things. But then I remember there was a point where I was like, nope, it's all good. Like it can all go. And, because and that's when I knew I was on the right path in some ways, is risking it all for that. I mean, of course, there's pragmatic, you do have basic needs. So don't forget your basic needs, your sleep, your eating, all of those things. But when you have something and you're doing something and you believe in it that much, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but you are willing to invest, not just yourself, your time, but also if you have any personal assets, those personal assets. So that was mine. And in terms of pivoting my business plan, so much has changed. Dotstash relies heavily on public spaces to be open. So we are pivoting from targeting universities to airports, which have stayed open during the pandemic. So yeah, just kind of still the same strategy, but slower. And then being more mindful of the organizations that we are targeting that are what's quote unquote COVID proof.
Great, thank you, Mona. Johan?
Yeah, I can't really talk to sacrifices in that sense. Again, since we started this in college, the only real sacrifice we made was just whatever the opportunity cost would have been to have gotten a more mainstream job. But answering the second and third parts of your question, how we got funding to start was pitch competitions. We just pitched wherever we could, and that actually took us to some crazy places. But even without that, like in the tech space, we're in a very lucky point in time in 2020 where there's a lot of infrastructure that's cheap that you can use to develop your prototypes, test them with customers, and really like get your business off the ground. Like especially people like to think, or people my age specifically like to think when they want to make a social app, that they need to have everything developed before they can even test it. But you can make like a Facebook group and test out the basic premise. There's a lot of stuff you can do easy. How the business plan changed along the way. I mean, nobody starts out with like a 100% dead set idea of where they're going to end up. Either you have a rough idea of what the problem is and you learn as you keep developing the solution to it. The neighboring problems that you can solve as well, how to the better angle to approach it with, what your product's actually going to look like and who it's actually going to serve. So for us, we thought we would originally just tackle college students, but the more we tried to push it to college students, the more like our friends' parents were getting interested, and the more we realized like, oh, the people with the purchasing power especially are a lot older than we thought, but they interface with these kind of problems all the time. So it's all that stuff is natural in the process. So that's all I can say to that.
Great, thank you, Johan. Anyone else want to chime in? Greg?
Debbie, no? Okay. So I guess what I just be willing to sacrifice a lot, and that's okay. And so for us, I'll say Chad and I, when we got things going, like we slept on my brother's sofas for the first year of business, and we just didn't take in any money for ourselves. We lived rent free. Luckily, were able to do that, but like we were living in a living room for the first year. And then after our second year, we literally had 2 full-size beds in a bedroom, and we had like this much space between. And we did that for the next year, and that was okay. And that was like some of my like favorite times, like looking back at like what we had to go through to get where we are today. So it wasn't like, oh man, we're gonna make tons of money, because in our business plan, it certainly showed that. And we certainly asked for X amount of dollars that we weren't gonna get. And people like, you believe in your idea, and a lot of people are gonna like they're not, and that's okay. Like, you just have to keep on pushing forward and figuring out ways to get the funding that you need to get. And like, whether that comes from like, especially when you come out of college, you don't typically, some of you may be fortunate enough, but we didn't have any collateral. So like, we had Chad's Honda Civic, and I had my car that was still being paid, so that didn't count. So we got a much smaller loan that we thought than we wanted. But you sacrifice a lot, and you make it work. And if you truly believe in what you're doing, like, you're gonna figure it out. And just like, be willing to adapt to that. Because if someone looked at what we opened up, the amount of money that we opened up our store with, that'd have been like 0% chance you guys are gonna make it. But we didn't pay ourselves. I don't know. We just sacrificed a lot, but it works out. And also a lot of luck came with that. But yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, I know we're out of time, but I just wanted to add a little bit. You know, for me, I actually gave myself 1 year. It made it simple, that it was, okay, I'm gonna do this thing for 1 year and see if anything comes out of it. And if not, then, you know, I can go do something else. And it was very clear that after the first year that something is happening. So I think maybe that's a good place to start, because, you know, it seems very daunting to be like, I want to build an empire or whatever. But if you have it in smaller chunks, like, hey, I want to build an app, but I don't have money to hire engineers, so I'm gonna, you know, sketch it up and shop it around in my Facebook group, right? Like Johan said. And if I get this group going, then I can do the next chunk. So I think, you know, for me, it was, I set up enough, you know, money for me to survive for 1 year. And then after that, you know, I'd have to make the decision. And then that 1 year came, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do for the foreseeable future. And I see a path forward.
I agree with that. And I also, just one thing, sorry, is you don't have to spend a lot of money, especially if you're doing a tech startup. Like, you can iterate with what you can. Use Google Forms, use whatever. It doesn't have to be like, our very first thing that we presented was on like a Google slide. You know, it was free. We had Zoom, so we started doing virtual meetings, like with Triton's Tutors was my first one. We've done 3,000 hours of free tutoring targeting lower income schools since April. So it's not that, you know, and that is how we just iterate, is before you spend all the money of trying to get lawyers and doing all of those things, make sure you have a viable product that people want, and like work on that. You know, that's something that I kind of wish I did with Dotstash, is I put a lot of money, personal money in it. And then, you know, granted, it's different, it's hard tech, so it required a lot more. But no regrets, that I learned a lot through the process, and we're still going pretty strong. So
Great, thank you, Mona. And all of our panelists have included our contact information in the chat. So Greg, if you could just drop your contact info in there as well, that would be great. So I know we're out of time, but just really quickly, this event was brought to you by the Basement. And so on behalf of the Basement, we encourage you to follow us on our social media. Our handle is UCSD Basement. Our most popular platforms are Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, with a little bit of Twitter. We also have a newsletter. So we have, as I mentioned, wellness is a focus that we are really trying to incorporate into our events. So subscribe to our newsletter to learn more about entrepreneurial activities here on campus and also in the greater San Diego community. Feel free to check out our website or contact us as needed. And I'll turn it over to my partner, Mona, on behalf of her department.
thank you, everyone. And so we are going to be sending out a survey. So again, I represent wellness and engagements with HDH. So we're here to support our students on campus and as well as those at home. So if you ever need to email me for UCSD business related stuff, email me at mpowell@ucsd.edu or hdhwellness@ucsd.edu. And our Instagram and Facebook are linked to HDH Wellness. So. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, panelists.
Just want to thank our panelists for this really insightful and meaningful conversation this afternoon, and for all of you for sticking around. If you're sticking around for the raffle, I just dropped in the chat the link, but we are doing a raffle giveaway. The raffle is eligible only to UC San Diego students, so I apologize to those folks who aren't students, but we'll be raffling off stamp stocks thanks to Milestone Running and also a $10 Amazon gift card. Fill out the survey with the bit.ly. We'll also send the bit.ly via Eventbrite. That way, if you aren't able to catch the URL, you'll have another opportunity. And the raffle will close tomorrow, Friday the 23rd at 12 o'clock noon. So thank you so much, everyone. We are now concluding this event.